This is Adam Kokesh, Libertarian presidential candidate, running to get rid of the entire federal government. In the spirit of this podcast you're listening to right now, Decentralize Now.
Free the people, free the markets. Decentralize Now.
Season 2.
Hey, thanks for listening to Decentralize Now. We've got a very special guest on. We have Adam Kokesh on the program, and of course, we're very excited. This is someone who's inspired the podcast, and a large part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing is because of his thought and his activism. So we are beyond glad that he took the time to speak with us. So a little bit of a background on Adam Kokesh. You're probably already familiar unless you've been living completely under a rock. But of course, Adam Kokesh started Iraq Veterans Against the War. Very influential through his program, Adam versus the Man, and all of his social media influence. And of course, now he's seeking the presidential nomination for the Libertarian Party. We cannot be more excited to be speaking now with Adam Kokesh. So, Adam, thanks for taking the time to speak with us and just sharing your thoughts with us.
Oh, Roger, thank you so much for that intro. And really, that's the best kind of feedback. Of all the nicknames I've earned or things I've been called publicly, being an activist is my favorite. And media production has been a big part of my activism, and to know that I'm inspiring others and that the ideas are getting out, and it is so beautiful to feel, like viscerally, really deeply feel, because you're connected to it, you're a part of it, the acceleration of humanity towards a free society, this ascension that we're going through, the acceleration of technology and awareness and communications technology. Big techno-optimist, but it means nothing without deliberate, conscientious use, like what you're doing with independent media and helping people push past the present paradigm of bullshit.
Well, it is true. I mean, we're certainly, amateur journalists for sure, but it was Adam versus the Man that was a big inspiration. And also just your YouTube, personality. And I guess I kind of want to talk about a little bit of your background, and this is how I became exposed to your ideas. I'm going to say, I feel like we used to have a free internet. Now, maybe that's an illusion. There never really was a free internet. But, the means of production in terms of spreading information was really decentralized. Anyone could go on YouTube, yes. Anyone could go on Facebook, and now people had access to news and information outside of the mainstream media, which of course, is a huge threat to the establishment. And you were definitely one of those people who were able to take advantage of those mediums and speak directly to the people. So I guess if you can talk to us a little bit about maybe your history and how you were able to communicate your beliefs to people, and kind of where you're coming from, your background as an activist and a journalist.
Yeah, well, first, if I may comment about that dynamic, it's absolutely true that the internet is a game changer in media distribution. So don't get me wrong, if I sound like a bit of a pessimist here, but there was kind of a golden era almost.
Sure. For
like maybe 2010 till. Maybe even before that, going back 2008 time, when Ron Paul was running the first time as a Republican for president. Of course, he ran Libertarian in 88. But then Google bought YouTube and Facebook got nasty. And it feels like we're in this different dark era where anybody in independent media has to fight that censorship. And I feel like I'm this, mastermind from the prior generation who inspired all these other shows, and screw you, YouTube. You want to censor me? You want to shadow ban me, Facebook? Fine. You got to censor everybody now, and they're trying, we got to fight this. This is what we're up against. But they can't stop an idea whose time has come, as Ron Paul would have said. And it is really, freedom is here. We are on the verge of this incredible acceleration. So for my past, how that fits into it, just to give everybody who's never hurted me, a sense of why I can say, like, I'm really viscerally feeling this. I'm, really connected to all this. I have to go back to my start in activism, which was Iraq Veterans Against the War, when I got out of the military November 30, 2006, moved to D.C., was involved in the protests around the 4th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq in March of 2007. And that was when I first became a national public figure, protesting with IVAW in a lot of creative ways, got us some great headlines. But, it comes back to being in Iraq in 2004, and goddamn, you're making me feel old here, going back, waxing nostalgic. Yeah, back in my day when Marines were still salty, and I'm like, yeah, man, my war was 15 years ago, but it's not even just that. I mean, what I see this as such a beautiful, positive progress. Iraq was an echo of Vietnam, in terms of violence and the scope of the brutality of that war. Wars are based on lies. I'm a big fan of Major General Smedley Butler, who was one of the most decorated Marines in military history, 2 Medals of Honor, yada yada, World War I era. Came out and wrote a book called War is a Racket, in which he described himself as a high-class muscle man for big business, and that war is always based on lies. It is poor men dying to line rich men's pockets. It is the oldest and most vicious racket of government. And we are coming to the point now in the age of the internet where, you can lie to us, but you can't really get away with it the way you used to be able to. How long have you been trying to get a war going with Iran? They all hate you because of your freedom. They have nuclear weapons. And you can get on YouTube and go, like, what's daily life like in Iran? I could get on Skype and talk to someone who, like, random friend finder chat thing, and be talking to people in Iran in 2 minutes and be like, no, I'm sorry, military industrial complex, you're totally full of shit.
Well, if you don't mind, I actually want to get I want to kind of transition to the campaign, but I'm actually fascinated to get your ideas about what you just mentioned there. The media machine was able to get us into Vietnam, Afghanistan and Iraq, but you're exactly right. They've been doing everything they can to get us to intervene in Iran. And my intuition, my feeling of the lay of the land is that the American people are just calling bullshit. Even normies are just calling bullshit. So do you see a sense of optimism there, or is that maybe not seeing?
Absolutely, and one of the recent big data points that I take a lot of affirmation from is the Epstein quote unquote suicide, where they tried to get away with that. And how do you, at that highest profile level, screw up so bad that whether it's his body or someone else's body in the autopsy that's got, broken bones and all this shit, all these holes in their story. It's insane. But my favorite meme that came out, and I love, slipping in Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself every chance I get, because it's like, everybody knows now. Government's full of shit. They're just, it's the super class. Now you say what you want about government conceptually, but my favorite meme that came out of that was, it said at the top, mainstream media, Jeffrey Epstein kills self. America. And then it was a picture of 1,000 Alex Joneses, like, charging towards the camera with gay frogs in the background, rooting them on. And it's like, everybody right away called bullshit on that. And it was obvious. And I know it's still kind of a distraction issue compared to the military-industrial complex, compared to corporatism, compared to the banking cartel, centralization, Federal Reserve System, racket, all of that. But it is such a powerful insight. And to answer your question more broadly and decisively here, for me, I'm not just a techno optimist. I'm a human optimist. I see that humanity progresses. We dance forward. Life gets better over time. And when you understand that the measure of evil of government is not its size, but how much it violently pulls us away from our natural state of harmony that would exist either in its absence or if it was a voluntary institution, then you see that what we have throughout human history is a decline in violence and an increase in freedom. And I'm not going by my own analysis or observation here. I'm relying on the work of Professor Steven Pinker of Harvard,
Sure.
who did a great TED Talk, The Surprising Decline in Violence, based on his book, Better Angels of Our Nature. And he proves, and I can, debate his conclusions and analyses, and people can argue about that. But what you really can't argue with is what he proved academically, irrefutably, which is that not only are we living in the most peaceful times in human history, but that over the course of human history, it follows a radioactive decay curve kind of decline and gets lower and lower and lower, and we get freer and freer and freer. And this, to me, is fundamentally connected to life itself. Multi-celled organisms beat out single-celled organisms. Human societies that can cooperate are going to be more productive and happier and provide a better quality of life than societies that are fighting all the time. And, you might attribute this, as Pinker does in some ways, to rule of law. But that law, the part that matters is not the government violating the natural law, but the embracing of natural law, which is ethics. Don't hit, don't steal, don't kill. We have embraced those. We have come so far from whoever could pick up the biggest rock is in charge, I guess, okay, to where we are today. It's just that we make this little exception for government. Don't hit, don't steal, don't kill, unless you're a cop or a soldier or an IRS agent. And I am absolutely confident that, barring the caveats of being struck by a meteor or nuclear war or, the Grey Goose scenario or something crazy like that, humanity is going to continue to progress. We're going to get better. The evolution towards a voluntary, truly nonviolent society is inevitable. It is our destiny.
Well, I want to talk about that because, when we have some other guests on, obviously we're asking, hey, what's your background? Why did you want to run? And then we get into their specific positions. What is it when you in the office? What is it that you're going to do? What are your positions? But your campaign is truly unique, and that's almost like an anti-campaign. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but when you are elected, the first thing you're going to do is completely dissolve the whole show. Is that a good understanding, or maybe tease out the nuances of that?
Sure. Well, when you say the whole show, let's at least define that. But yes,
sure.
The premise of my campaign is my philosophical orientation towards ethics of the non-aggression principle and self-ownership and nonviolence, the basic premises of libertarianism. You own yourself, therefore it's wrong to violate you, to steal your property, to interfere with your freedom, to take your life. And government, our understanding of governments today, and this isn't to say that they could not at some point transition to voluntary systems, which is really what this is about, but governments as we know them today are territorial monopolies on violence. And the question then is, how do we transition to a nonviolent society? How do we get government really accountable to the people that it's serving? And the answer is localization. You take governments apart from the top down until they get down to the community level, because a community is a voluntary group that you choose to join and you can choose to leave. And there might be city-states still, there might be areas that look like governments, but if you have the right to opt out at any time to secede on your own property, the way this country got here in the first place when we said screw you to the king, why do we live in this un-American system where if you declare your independence, men with guns on behalf of politicians come and say, no, you can't do that. That is un-American. And so my platform is based on the ethical premises that reveal the unethical nature of government, that this power fundamentally shouldn't exist. And with all due respect to my fellow libertarian candidates, many of whom are great principled people, sure. I think the platform of saying, I'm going to be president, I'm going to put on the ring of power, and I'm going to be special, I'm not going to be corrupted by it, that's insane. And it's unethical because you're putting on a ring of power that is exercising a power that is fundamentally unjust and unethical and shouldn't exist in the first place. So it's true that I am technically running for president, but every time I have to introduce myself as a presidential candidate, I throw up in my mouth a little bit because you have to be some kind of psychopath.
Sure.
Sure. And again, with all due respect to the libertarians who think they're running on principle and to themselves, whatever, they genuinely are. I do respect that. It is insane. This is the only principled libertarian presidential platform to say, I'm not going to put on the ring, I'm going to throw it in the fire. And I am resigning on day one. The only thing that I might do as president, and this is going to have we're going to do this one way or another, whether I do it legally is the only, in this format is the only question, but to sign a pardon of everybody who's in federal prison for victimless crimes, especially the whistleblowers like Ed Snowden, sure, Assange, Manning, and whatever their current legal situations are, Schaefer Cox, Ross Ulbricht. These are political prisoners in America, and the first thing we're going to do is make sure that justice is at least, we start to serve that justice or right those wrongs. And then I resign, and I resign to be custodian of the federal government. With one executive order, we declare the federal government bankrupt, as it has been arguably for many, many years. And we're just facing up to this and applying a solution as big as the problem here, to say we're going to take it through a peaceful, orderly, responsible bankruptcy process that leaves us with 50 independent states and up to 562 sovereign native nations. And while you might say, well, I could secede on my own, California may be about to do that if we don't do it this way. But one, I'm not willing to wait. And two, I'm not willing to tolerate the injustice of everything that has been freaking stolen from us by the federal government. As we do this, I have to take this as a fiduciary responsibility as a bankruptcy agent to say, no, we're not going to acknowledge the illegitimate debts. That what you see as the federal debt on paper is mostly owed to banks, corporations, and foreign governments. That's not a legitimate debt. You as an American, when they say, oh, well, you turned 18, your share of the debt is $300,000 something, and you better work and pay your taxes to, it's stuff that you never had a say in. That's intergenerational child abuse, by the way, to have a child and say, here you go, now you're born with debt. You were born with an obligation. It's a kind of slavery, an intergenerational child abuse. So that goes out the window. We write off all of the illegitimate debts, and the only legitimate debt that we recognize is the debt to the American people.
There are two. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so it's everything that's been stolen from us that can be liquidated by the federal government that doesn't get localized to the states or spun off as a public trust like the VA or Social Security. And a records administration, we get to release all the documents. But Alex Jones is going to love that. But we have to do it responsibly, like I said, so we're not revealing personal information the federal government shouldn't have. And the federal lands, the federal government owns, quote unquote, about 50% of the land in the western states. You know what that means? This is your birthright as an American. The idea that we are told we should be shooting for 100% employment rates is insane in 2019. The goal should be 100% retirement, financial security and independence for every American, because that is what has come before us in the work done by our parents' generations and the generations before us. We've made it this far. The only reason Americans are struggling to feed their families, working paycheck to paycheck, is because it has been engineered this way. All of the wealth of generations has been stolen from us, and we are taking it back. We are going to issue every single American 1,000 cryptocurrency tokens. We're working title calling this the Americoin, and it'll be the only currency that we accept for the liquidating assets of the federal government. And in a sense, we're going to, well, obviously when we say end the Fed, we mean a little bit more than the Federal Reserve System. But yes, this does mean not only are we going to end the Federal Reserve System, but we're kind of having a Fight Club elimination of the debt record as well. And the American people we're taking back what is ours.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I want to say about the idea, which I love. I mean, this like I want to take it this angle first. What I love so much about your campaign and your philosophy and the way you communicate it is that everyone wins. As an example, in the state where I live, there's a rural part and an urban part, and they're extremely different. Hot and cold,
yes.
Ice, but
and it's insane to force those disparate communities into the same policy.
Exactly. And so you end the culture war, and everyone wins.
Yes,
everyone gets to go to the community where they belong. It's the only platform of peace. It's the only platform for peace, and everyone gets what they want. And why wouldn't everyone want to get what they want? You know what I mean? It's so
man,
empowering.
You beat me to my own talking points. this idea is localization. Get government down to the most local level possible where it can transition to these voluntary based, community based systems that I described earlier. But even at the immediate political level of let's get rid of the federal government, I want you to get what you want in those terms. Immediately, your experience with government is more customized. And just to clarify, agency of the federal government gets one of three or a combination of these three treatments, and this is it. They either get eliminated and liquidated completely. If there's the IRS, the FDA, all of the regulatory agencies of the federal government, gone. Or they get localized, like the Department of Transportation, not complicated, cut it up into 50 different pieces, and every state already has a Department of Transportation. They get their share.
Are you enjoying the podcast? Just kidding. We know you are, and you're welcome. You're listening to Decentralize Now.
A little more complicated, and I have to point out, the founders of this country were against a standing army. Yes, the United States military is an un-American, anti-freedom institution by definition. The founders advocated for a decentralized militia-based defense because they knew the only legitimate defense of a free people is a well-armed population that refuses to be governed by anyone. And as Gandhi proved, the well-armed part is optional, fortunately. But the military, so we take the military, everything that's offensive weaponry that has no legitimate defensive purpose, and all the research, all the high-tech stuff, all of that gets, the patents, all of that released to the public. You own that. If you're I was trying to make, we made some memes with Smokey the Bear, by the way. Only you can prevent runaway government. And we tried to put it on a t-shirt. We got in trouble with our vendor because the federal government owns the copyright to this thing that you pay for. And it's like all of the technology, we get to release all that, but then the defensive resources of the military will get dispersed, apportioned among the new sovereign states and tribal nations. Or third treatment is they get spun off. And the VA, let's give the VA to veterans. You end the drug war, give every veteran in America one ownership voting share of the VA on a blockchain, so we set the policy, not the politicians. We get to use psychedelics, MDMA, cannabis, whatever it takes to treat PTSD, to get all the medicine that Big Pharma has been keeping from the veterans community. I guarantee you will not have 22 veterans committing suicide a day with this policy. Social Security, we take the funds from the liquidation of the federal government and they go into Social Security, and it gets spun off as an independent public trust that disperses those funds until they're gone, and it'll be more than enough of a bridge for the states and communities to come up with much better systems, and for Americans to establish way better individual economic security than we have when we're all getting ripped off. So to what you said, I love calling this the everybody gets what they want strategy.
Yes.
I don't have to argue with you about politics anymore. This is really, the merging of principle and pragmatism that libertarians sometimes wring our hands about. And it's like, no, dig deeper. The principles are true and legitimate and righteous. And when you go, okay, I'm going to dig deeper on the principle, what do you know? It gets more practical. And now we can stop arguing aesthetics. What do we want our community to look like, or our society? No, it's ethics. Back to the ethics. Don't hit, don't steal, don't kill. Simple as that. And when we can say, look, you're going to have a community that's based on your values, that's set up to meet your needs, that's everybody gets what they want. If you want a conservative community, you can have that. You want a liberal community, you can have that. All I have to say is, look, if you want that, get it. Let's all just adhere to these basic moral American principles of freedom and respect for individual rights. And guess what? Everybody gets what they want.
And I know we have a limited amount of time, so I want to play devil's advocate. If I had one fastball to offer you, devil's advocate against a strategy, which is inspired me, inspired this podcast, it's this. With the Epstein thing, with Pizzagate, and it seems like we're exposing a lot of child sex trafficking, and I can't think of anything more evil to me than the intentional sex trafficking of children. It's despicable.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of
Yeah.
research that's been keeping us up. Now, for the background for this question, there was a website called Welcome to Video that was on the deep web. It was a for-profit private company that was selling videos from all over the world. Just I was shocked at the volume of their library from what these articles are saying. But the good news is they were taken down, but they were taken down by a multilateral cooperation between different governments. So the argument is, hey, without these government states, working together, this particular, website wouldn't have been taken down. It took different states and all their tools and resources in order to take down an operation. If Adam Kokesh gets his way, things are decentralized. There isn't going to be this centralized, force or agency that's going to have the tools and resources to compete with an operation at that level. So, I mean, obviously, that's a polemic example of child sex trafficking.
Right.
But you could change that variable to whatever sort of nefarious activity
Sure.
that you want to see. So, what would you say to someone who's saying that hey, a Hobbesian argument that government is a necessary evil, but we might need these large states to take down people who work internationally, do nefarious things, and have lots of resources. How is that situation going to get better through decentralization?
Yeah, that's a typical objection, but it's a really easy question to answer, and I'm going to answer with two separate things. First is some perspective, and the second is the practical benefits that we get from a decentralized governance system in dealing with real criminals. And first of all, if a mafia don who just murdered 100 people, steps in and stops a bully from beating up his son, do you go, well, you got to let him kill all those people because, look, he stopped a bully? No, you don't. Get some freaking perspective. Government is a dangerous, violent, vicious racket that makes all the other evil in the world pale by comparison. You look at the violence in the world today, 90% of it is done in the name of government. Of the remaining 10%, 90% of it is directly caused by government with the war on drugs and the war on poverty. It's insane to let them get away with this excuse because they put one, and I don't mean to downplay the significance of what they're doing here, but in comparison, no, I'm sorry, it is insignificant. And to the lives that are saved, it is huge. Yes, there are good people in government using it for righteous ends, but the people who control it keep it set up so that they are isolated, they don't get this bigger perspective, and they are able to do legitimate good work and save lives and help people. And I don't mean to discount that at all, but recognize that the purpose of that is to fool you. It is a distraction from the far, far greater evils being committed by government. And there is a genuine, so here's my second part of the answer, there is a genuine desire among the people to put resources into holding criminals accountable. What we are restricted in doing that with right now is the government system of, it's not a justice system, it's a legal system. The Dalai Lama was once asked, what would be the first thing you would do if you were president? And he said, I'd start calling things by their proper names. Yeah, war is murder. Police are essentially street gangs, and politicians are criminals. Let's be honest about this. So when you say as a society, we're going to trust government to go after the pedophiles, not only does that mean you have to put up with war and all the other great injustices and ripoffs, but it means that the resources that society puts into real justice are now subject to the same corruption, misappropriation, distortion, ineffectiveness, and inefficiencies as the rest of government. And what I want to see is humanity freed to address those other evils once we get rid of government and say, well, there's still pedophilia. There's still greedy psychopaths out there. There's still violent individuals. I want to see us stomp that out too. And we're going to be able to much faster, much more effectively, much more efficiently with government out of the way. If there are large international criminal organizations still at that time, and I would bet government probably made, I mean, goddamn, Gulf of Tonkin, just look back at the history of, of false flag events being used to make war happen. You really think that even these pedophile rings that they bust and say, look, we busted all these, how much of that do you think is like, maybe they're rogue CIA agents pulling this crap? I don't care to get into it. You know, when I see a knife in my back, I don't go, well, what's the metal made out of? Who
Sure.
made that knife? No, get it the heck out of there. And that's how I feel about this greater evil of government. And when this objection is raised as you present it, it is a legitimate one that has to be considered. You know, but no, it's very easily addressed and understood that we are going to be way better at holding criminals accountable when we get rid of the big criminals in government.
Well, we're at 3 o'clock now, so I definitely want to be respectful of your time. But I could keep going on. So, thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking the time. We appreciate everything that you've done and what you're doing for everyone, so that everyone wins. So, if anyone's listening and this is the first time they've heard about Adam Kokesh and they definitely want to hear more, where would you send them to learn more about you and your campaign?
Well, first, you know, Roger, let me just say I really appreciate that, and I appreciate this opportunity, and it is so affirming for me personally in everything that I'm doing with my activism and the vision for freedom that I have developed for myself. I will say first, for people who want to support this campaign, the only way to vote in the Libertarian primary is at the national convention. Yes, some states hold what we call beauty contests of public votes, presidential primary preference polls. They have no bearing on the individuals who get to choose who the Libertarian Party nominee is, of about 1,000 delegates at the Libertarian National Convention in Austin in May next year. And it's relatively easy to become a delegate. So please go to the website, kokeshforpresident.com, sign up, give us your info, contact us, reach out, plug in with one of our state or regional coordinators. We can hold your hand through the process. It's not that hard. We want to encourage everybody to have their voice heard in the real Libertarian primary in Austin in May of next year. Of course, if you're not ready to take that leap, please donate. Yes, we take cryptocurrency, everyone possible. If you can download a wallet for it, we'll take it. We're set up automatically with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, so please check those out. You know, we do need the money just to keep, you know, we're running on an all volunteer force at this point. I'd like to be able to staff up and pay some of my volunteers to take it to the next level, to get more interviews, to get this message out there, to get more books and campaign literature distributed. But we also need to raise the money just to get around, just to keep this campaign going, keeping the campaign bus on the road, getting around to conventions. And we really appreciate all the financial support that we've gotten so far. It's been amazing. So if anybody else can throw in and make that happen, I really appreciate it. And my main website is thefreedomline.com, 3 words. You don't have to remember my funny last name. You can find Kokesh for President through thefreedomline.com. My book is there for free in every digital format possible. The paper version is on Amazon as cheap as we could make it. And I encourage everybody to check that out. Check out my YouTube channel, social media, all of that through thefreedomline.com. And I'll just end with this, because I love the name of this show. And Roger, I love, you know, how you started this decentralization, you know, and I use the term localization to refer to the specific political process of taking governments apart from the top down and driving political decisions down to the community level. But in a bigger sense, it's, yeah, there's a phenomena of the technology that we're experiencing today, the explosion of decentralization that is just, it is so beautiful, so powerful. And as I said earlier, I'm a techno-optimist. It is fundamentally empowering. Technologies are distributed faster, exponentially, with every new iteration, from the printing press to the car to the smartphone to the internet. Every new idea now can go around the world in an instant. And while I can say, yes, this is fundamental to the nature of technology, it means nothing without deliberate, conscientious use. It means nothing without people like you doing shows like this. And so to anybody who's still listening, at the end of this, please share this interview, support this platform, support Decentralize Now, support independent media, whatever it is that you listen to, that you value. What we're up against with the mainstream media and the information control through government, through all the systems of authority that we have today, it takes you to be an active and engaged audience member and citizen in civilized society to get this leap forward to take advantage of this technology and to really take humanity to the next evolutionary phase of a voluntary society. So Roger, thank you so much for the opportunity again and for being a part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, guys, this has been Decentralized Now with freaking Adam Kokesh. So you're welcome, and like and share, and visit us online. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.
Hey guys, Busted here. Another huge shout out to Adam Kokesh. We just can't thank you enough for coming on the program. What an incredible person. So easy to talk to. So down to earth. Just an amazing, amazing person. I never would have imagined that in less than a year, this podcast would be at a level where people like Adam freaking Kokesh were coming on the program. It's just absolutely amazing. And we never would have gotten to this point without you guys, without your support, without you liking, subscribing, sharing, engaging in the Facebook page, joining the Discord community, checking us out on Breaker, checking us out on YouTube and SoundCloud, and all these other platforms that we're on. So just thank you guys so much for making this possible. Now, something we thought would be fun to do, since this episode was a little bit shorter than normal, would be for us to kind of talk about the interview, how it went, some things that were going on in the background that you guys might find funny. And if you guys like it, we'll make it a more regular part of the program. So stick around for some special content. And, we hope you guys stick around and follow us into 2020. And we have a lot of exciting stuff set up for you guys. We're working on getting artists and musicians and writers on the program, kind of giving them a platform to showcase their work. So we have a lot of really exciting stuff coming up in the new year. Again, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Adam Kokesh, for coming on the program. This is Decentralize Now, and just thank everybody so much for your support. Okay, yeah. So I was not there. I was recording, but I didn't get to really hang out and talk with Kokesh during the interview due to some scheduling conflicts. But we got the interview, and it seems like everything turned out well. But I thought it would be fun now that it's all over and done with, and we can kind of laugh about it, if we took a moment to talk about what a fucking disaster it was and how it almost didn't happen.
No, and just for the record, Adam Kokesh wasn't a disaster. The only fucking redeemable thing was Adam Kokesh. Adam was fucking great. Adam was a complete professional. He kicked ass. I dropped the ball so fucking hard with this interview, and I almost botched the whole fucking thing. So yeah, this was not our shining moment. But Adam, he's a consummate professional. He's an extremely laid back guy. He came on, we were able to record it, and he kicked some ass. Absolutely.
It was it's weird, man, because it's this one turned out pretty well, and like you said, dude was professional as fuck.
Oh fuck yeah, he's amazing.
For real, dude, he saved the podcast for us. So, he has no idea. He saved this episode. He fucking swooped in like a knight in shining fucking armor. It was just you guys suck. Let me just do my thing, But
how bad we suck cannot bring down how awesome he is. You know what I mean? He's just at that level. It doesn't matter how bad we suck. He's
oh my god! Didn't you say he had to teach you how to do something in fucking?
So let me just back to the beginning. That was one of the moments in that hour where I wanted to kill myself.
It's only the medium we use to fucking record all our shit.
So I don't want to go into specifics, but I had reached out to some people from the Kokesh campaign, and of course, I'm a huge Kokesh, fan and follower. I mean, he's influenced my beliefs, and I've been very excited about his presidential bid. If you're following me on Facebook, I have Kokesh shit on my profile picture before I was even talking to any of these people. So, the fact that we were able to schedule some time for him to come on, I was fucking pumped. And you and we've been talking about this shit for weeks, and we had a game plan. Hey, there's the questions we're going to ask. We were putting all this time into it. Come the day for the interview, we were just having a lot of audio problems, and I get a buzz, and it's just Adam Kokesh in our server, like, "Hey, I'm ready when you guys are," and just shit is not working. We're both of us aren't. Excuse me. We're both not in the server, and I'm flipping out because I've got Adam Kokesh, who is a really fucking busy guy. You know what I mean? And now he's just twiddling his thumbs.
He's got other shit to do besides wait on our fucking stupid asses. Jesus
to get in a
Christ.
Discord server. So I'm freaking out. Eventually, it's like 25 minutes into the hour, and then we get into the server. We get into the interview, and it's like 25 minutes into this thing of Adam Kokesh doing fucking nothing in the server. I already want to fucking blow my brains out, but I'm trying to keep it cool. You know what I mean? And I just go, "Hey, Adam, how are you?" And it was almost like we were friends. Not like we were friends. Like we've talked to some of these other candidates, and there's like a professional tone that people have, where it's like you're at a job interview or something. It wasn't like that. He didn't seem pretentious at all. It was just, "Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, so how do we do this?" You know what I mean? It was just, "Oh yeah, whatever. Let's just get down to business." And I'm like, "Cool, yeah, let's do it." We just talked about some of the details. What you were referring to was this: when he was trying to speak, he was trying to go like, there's something called press to talk, and he was like, "I don't want to do press to talk, man. I just want to be able to talk." And I had made him special guest, and I was supposed to make him moderator, and I didn't know that, so he actually had to like teach me in the interview how to get rid of his press to talk capability. And I was like, "Fucking Jesus," because typically, I'm just talking, and you're in the background, kind of doing your thing, and you've got that managed. And because I fucked up, it wasn't able to happen. But he was an absolute professional about it. I think we got some great content, and yeah, I mean, can you believe that? Like, we started this podcast as Decentralized now, like maybe like a year, and already we have an interview with the guy.
It was March. I bet it was like fucking March, dude. That we really started doing any of this. And the first season, which is tucked away right now for some editing reasons, was only like what we do 6 episodes, including like the 420 special. And this season we're on this will be like the 15th episode.
And that's the thing, is that we talked about Kokesh before. Like, I remember in season, I believe it was either season 1 or early season 2, we were watching a video of his where he was like doing his little speech in front of the White House, and he had a shotgun, and he got arrested for that.
That shit was fucking dope. Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, "Oh, this guy's the shit." Dope. Yeah. And then not too later, he's in our fucking Discord talking about how he's running for president. And that kind of fits into the theme of what we talked about, because the internet is a radical tool. I mean, we are living in the age of like the Gutenberg press on steroids, because now anyone can produce media, anyone can share their opinion, and we can reach out. We have access to communicate with these great minds and share ideas. So, and if you listen to the interview, Kokesh called himself a techno-optimist. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. We can become very pessimistic about the role of technology in our lives. But if you think about it, it's done so much for democracy and freedom and decentralization and just empowering the human spirit by being able to express ourselves and communicate freely. Without the internet, dude, you and I have no fucking voice. There is no way ever we are A, going to have a publication, B, be able to interview someone who's running for president like that. It's just not going to fucking happen. But because of the advances in technology, we have the ability to do that. And, it's good to, keep that in mind.
It's we're running this podcast on like no money, basically.
No money.
Like, we have not put any money into like really we haven't put any money, honestly, into advertising. The little bit of money I have put on it is for like chords and a few programs, but I mean, I'm not dropping, serious dollars on any of this. This is just something we kind of started doing because it was fun. It was a good hobby. It was, good way to hang out and talk once a week. And we always felt our conversations were goofy and that other people might enjoy them. That's kind of how this all started. Why do you think, There's a lot of people out there. I mean, especially since I've started joining some of these forums and pages for other podcasters and stuff. There's some people out there that are small time podcasters, kind of like we are, but they're dropping serious money. They got nice ass mics. I am literally using my headset that I used to play on Xbox with. That is what I'm fucking using to talking to right now. They got cameras and the expensive laptops or computers. I mean, they're dropping money. They got mixers and shit. Why do you think people putting that kind of time and stuff into it aren't getting people on the level of like Kokesh or Ken Armstrong to come on their program? Which,
so basically you're asking me, like, why do we get it, not them?
Yeah. Why do you think they don't? Is it you think they don't reach out, or they don't have the means to get in contact with people, or do you think that just how are we able to get Ken Armstrong? Which is another one we could talk about. I fucked the audio up on that one. If you want to talk about you screwing up Kokesh, dude, I fucked Ken Armstrong's fucking interview up so bad. Yeah, the big time guy. Like all the interviews we've done have been great, and then like we get some like big hitters in here, and it's like, oh, fumble.
It is.
But no, like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that they were willing to come on our? I mean, I kind of feel like I know why Adam Kokesh was willing to, because I think he's like, I just kind of got the feeling that he's a down to earth guy, and he's just like, fuck it, I'll do it. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Sounds good to me. But why do you think other people don't reach out and do those types of things?
Well, I think it's two things. Number one, like we're not just a podcast. Like I don't know who these other podcasts are that you're talking about, but I don't know if they're specifically political. Like we have a very niche political, market, if you will, or political leanings. It's in the Libertarian Party. Like we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans. We're fucking Libertarians, and I think the Libertarian Party still respects the internet culture, respects the underground, because they know they're not going to get mainstream media. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to get a fair shake with mainstream media, so these candidates have to do everything they can to get any kind of recording or exposure out on the internet. So that's why I think Ken Armstrong was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And also, with the delegates going into Austin in 2020, that's how these candidates can really break it big. We may have another 2016 repeat where people just hate the Republican and Democratic candidate so much that they're going to go searching for another party option, which is what Johnson was able to really take advantage of in 2016. And they only have to convince a small amount of people. They're called the delegates who are going to Austin in 2020. So they don't. It's not a situation where you have to get mass exposure to win the presidential nomination for the Libertarian Party. You just have to convince the delegates. And, a podcast like ours, like I can take this shit and drop it into, I'm in several Facebook groups designed for delegates going to Austin 2020. I can drop this podcast, and now these candidates are getting their interviews, their ideas directly to those decision makers, directly to those delegates, so they can win the nomination. So I think we do serve as a conduit because we're very tied to the Libertarian Party. I think our voice is being heard by libertarian activists and potential delegates for the Libertarian Party. But also, I don't think people ask.
You think you've heard it all? You haven't heard shit. Stick around for more Decentralize Now.
So I don't think the Libertarian candidates are in a position where they can turn down any type of exposure. Now, Kokesh is a little bit different because this is a guy who's been on like Fox News and shit.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy he's had some serious exposure. So, for him to come on, it was really just it blew my mind. It was terrific because he definitely has access to some media that has a wide reach. So, as to why he came on, I don't know, but maybe it's just he's a down to earth guy. If you're willing to talk about his ideas, he's down to do it. Now, I wanted to talk. Can I kind of shift the conversation to what he talked about and what he believed, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing that really excited me about Kokesh, and I told him this, and he seemed to get very excited. Like you can hear in the interview, he starts going like, "Yes, you get it." With a Kokesh presidency, if you will, everybody wins. Because essentially, the idea for Kokesh is to decentralize. Is it decentralized now? Instead of having a centralized power coming from the federal government in Washington, D.C., you start decentralizing government so that it eventually goes back down to smaller, counties or city states. And so there's more power in your local area. And the real beauty of that is everybody wins. Like if you're in a city that, has lots of crime and there's a very liberal community, you get to have those policies. But what you don't get to do is you don't get to impose those policies and that way of life on people who live hundreds of miles away from you and are in a completely different context. So people are able to naturally form these types of communities and live in peace. So and he says it in the interview. It's like, we don't have to talk about politics anymore. Like, the war is over. We can end it. We can end the whole thing. People can just find their tribe. They can find their people. And everyone can, A, live in peace, so we don't have to fight each other. And B, everyone can get what they want. He's the only candidate right now who is fighting for everyone because he wants everyone to get what they want. And I think more people need to hear that message.
I actually a little off subject, but I actually got called a statist today for saying I was going to vote for Adam Kokesh.
You what? Someone said you were a statist because you're going to vote for Adam Kokesh. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm voting. I'm like, I guess I'm continuing the cycle, and I'm like, why don't you look this guy up? Why don't you look this guy up and get back to me?
yeah, for sure.
I mean,
voting
you're just saying that you're okay with having rulers. You're okay with having masters. You're trying to enforce your will onto other people. And I'm like, yeah, I think you need to look up Adam Kokesh and get back to me, man. You're kind of putting your foot in your mouth right now.
That's like peak. You're not a real libertarian. That type of shit is just plaguing. It's been plaguing the party for fucking years. The biggest threat, I think, to libertarian candidates is other libertarian candidates. But yeah, no, that's fucking retarded. Yeah. And we should really be supporting this guy because he said something too that I thought was so interesting. He's like, all these other libertarian candidates who are like, yeah, I'm gonna win the presidential election, but I'm not gonna just repeal the federal government. I'm gonna be a good guy. I'm not gonna be tainted. I'm not gonna be corrupted. And it's like, fucking really? When you get to that position of power, you are so holy and righteous that you're not going to be corrupted. You're not going to be tainted. Like, how do you know that? And I think that's a really good point to bring out. You know what I mean? People make promises, but when they get into that position, they're going to have access to unspeakable power. Everybody trying to bribe them. Everybody trying to taint them. It's just such a better vision to get rid of that beast, get rid of that monster, than to so naively believe that you're going to be in charge of the federal government and you're going to be successful at repealing centralized power and B, not become a part of the swamp yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to become the libertarian president and then just win over the Senate. You know what I mean? Like, you're just going to change all their minds. They're just going to stop being Republican and Democrat. Start seeing things your way.
Yeah, I mean, it's his vision just makes everything he's saying makes sense. When you really listen to Kokesh, because people might say things like, "Oh, well, these types they're not pragmatic," but no, it really seems like the only way this libertarian thing is going to work. And it's not just the only way that the libertarian thing is going to work. It's the only way that peace and freedom is going to work. It can't work with the state as it exists. There has to be drastic changes. Peace, freedom, nonviolence, prosperity. These things can't exist in the current framework. The entire framework has to change. And it doesn't need just a new bow on top or another shade. It needs to be completely altered from in the framework and the skeleton of the thing. And I think that Kokesh is one of the few candidates really, really offering that structural change.
You're currently listening to the best podcast in the whole fucking universe.
Decentralize now.
Oh man, there are these pictures. You know what happened in Jersey City recently, the shooting at the market. Obviously, that was a terrible thing. But one thing that I observed is some of the police officers who were there. They were wearing camo gear with like these M16s and shit. Like our police force is militarized.
They're militarized.
It's a standing army. Absolutely.
Yes.
They've got all sorts of crazy fuck. It's fucking way. It's like we're not going into a dystopian future. We are in the dystopian future that people in the 40s were fucking terrified of. You know what I mean? Like it's here and we're just in it. We're in the belly of the beast.
Oh yeah.
But a couple. Oh, go ahead.
Look, I was just gonna say, police now. There is no, trial by fucking jury and shit. The police officer is the officer, the judge, and the executioner now. You know what I mean? They're the judge, the jury, and the. Man. It's gotten ridiculous.
I don't want to open up this can of worms, but you know what you mentioned there with this whole impeachment shit about Trump. Like his impeachment trial is not gonna have any witnesses. There's no witnesses. They're just gonna like debate the shit. Like it's a complete fucking farce.
It's yeah, they're doing it in the most asinine, like shady fucking way. I mean, we'll get into that later. Let's
it's a rabbit trail. I want to touch on a few things that you mentioned about the founding fathers, where kind of like I agree, but then also kind of where I don't agree. And I'll start kind of where I don't agree first. We often have this vision of the founding fathers in this country as like, oh, they were here and they were fleeing religious persecution, and it was all about freedom and individual rights and the self ownership of man and all this shit. And maybe there was comparatively speaking for the time period, some of that. There's probably definitely more of that than there was in Europe per se. You have to remember that in this time period, it was only landowning white people who could vote.
I was going to say, well, they did own slaves.
Oppression.
Yeah,
they did. And it wasn't even just like a white and black thing. Like if you weren't a land-owning white person, you couldn't vote in Rhode Island. I mean, there was a lot of shit like that. And when we came over here, it was for imperial expansion. You know what I mean? A lot of it was, hey, there's this new world. There's all this economic opportunity. Let's send our soldiers and some colonists to exploit these resources and expand our empire. And that's what was going on with the Spanish and the French and the English, etc. Until there were colonial war. It was different empires fighting for control of the resources of the American continents. So I think it's more accurate, and we don't get this vision in the history class or whatever, but it's more accurate to view that time period of imperial expansion rather than where we're throwing off our shackles from the monarchy. That didn't happen until a lot later, and even when it did, these people like Washington and Hancock, all these guys, it was really just a bunch of, again, wealthy landowners in America realizing, we don't really need these guys anymore, so let's just tell them to fuck off and keep the money for ourselves. Like, I think that's why the American Revolution occurred, rather than we just really want to do something nice. I think it was more Washington and these, you know what I mean, just trying to keep their own fucking money. And, hey, there'll be a little bit more freedom as well. If you won't have British soldiers sleeping in your houses and fucking with you and doing all that shit. But there was still the entire system, it has been in a state of reformation since then. So I don't want it to be a situation where we're looking back to go, oh, we want to go back to that, because there were a lot of problems back then. It's more of a situation where we need to look forward to a better ideal. But I feel like I've been talking a lot.
No, you're good. You're good.
Where I do agree with you is this. The founding fathers, there was a lot of good shit there. I love the Constitution. I fucking love that shit. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's the best fucking document that's out there now. Fuck that shit. And I am proud of my heritage, you know what I mean? And as an American. And, when the founding fathers did their shit, the largest city in our country was Philadelphia with about 30,000 people, okay? It was a completely different world back then. They didn't know the Pacific Ocean fucking was there. They had no fucking clue how far this continent worked. So we are in a state where this thing has gotten so fucking big. and so monstrous that the framework of the 13 colonies isn't appropriate for what's happening now. We need decentralization. We need to create different nation states. And I'll tell you what, that's been going on all over the world. Have you heard about this Brexit shit?
I mean, yeah.
Well, they've been, the media's been over in England has been doing everything they can.
They're talking mad shit about it. This is horrible. This is going to destroy us. I can't believe that this is actually happening. What the fuck?
They just the England has had an election. I think it was on last Thursday, and Boris Johnson, who's sort of the Brexit champion, won in a landslide. Like all these different counties that typically are Labour or Liberal flipped conservative, and they're comparing it to Trump's victory. All over the world, you can look at Brazil with, I believe it's Bolsonaro in Brazil and all these other countries. People are rejecting globalism. They're rejecting centralization. Fucking Hong Kong's doing it. It's all over the world. There's these little fires of liberty, and you're not going to see it if you watch mainstream media, man. It's fucking infuriating if they're not covering this shit. Or if they are covering it, they're poo-pooing it.
They don't want anyone to get any wise ideas.
No, fucking exactly.
Did you fucking read that article about like the 111-year-old town that disbanded the town? It just said,
that's beautiful shit.
The taxes are getting ridiculous, so they just all fucking tried to pass a bill that just said, "Hey, let's just disband the town," and then it passed. So
that's fucking great.
Liquid, just boom, the town doesn't exist anymore. No more taxes.
That's pretty much what people who say, "Oh, it can't be done." Well, it's already been done. You know what I mean? They did that in the state where I live. They were like, on a smaller scale, but their police force was giving them a problem, so they just voted to disband the cops. They just voted the cops out of jobs.
That's fucking awesome.
We can do that shit. I mean, we need to be reminded that these people are supposed to work for us. It doesn't fucking feel that way when you're fucking pulled over. It doesn't feel like these guys are working for you.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel that way because guess what? They're fucking not. What is it? George Carlin? He fucking it's a big club and you ain't in it.
You're not in it.
Free the people, free the markets. Decentralize now.
Yeah, here it is. Just before we move on, they wanted to save their 119-year-old village, so they got rid of it. Amelia, Ohio. There were allegations of suspicious political donations and rumors about fake social media accounts. Protesters wore T-shirts, "Stop the Tyranny." For more than a year, the residents of Amelia, just outside of Cincinnati, have been consumed by a fiery debate over a proposal to impose a new local tax of just 1%. This month, voters found a way around that problem by getting rid of their 119-year-old village altogether. That shit's fucking awesome.
That's fucking badass. That's decentralized now, right there. That's fucking great.
Oh yeah, you want to like? That's what I said that on one of the other episodes. They're like, okay, you want to fucking raise us 1% more? Okay, well, we just don't have a town now. Eat shit. Like in other fucking. That's what I was saying like a couple episodes ago. In other countries, they're like, oh, we're gonna raise the fee to get on the train by like 5 cents, and they just burnt all the trains down.
Oh yeah, in Paris and shit.
It's
absolutely.
like, fuck you. Now you don't have any trains, bitch. I mean, I guess they can't get anywhere either, but still.
Well, isn't that it, man? It's like, well, here's something. I'm gonna make a connection here. Kokesh said, it's at the end of the interview. I said, hey, I'm going to try to throw you a fastball or whatever. And I wasn't doing that to be a dick. I wanted to play devil's advocate because whenever I talk about these ideas of, massive decentralization and kind of bringing things down to the county or the city level, one thing that I get is, a problem that I get is this. So with a federal government, you have a large defense force, you know what I mean, that's able to protect the people, with the army and the military. If you decentralize everything, what's to stop Russia or China from just waltzing in, and now we lose everything? Now we're just China 2.0 or Russia 2.0 or some shit like that. And the example that I use in the interview would be child sex trafficking. because there has been a lot of success recently with busting some child pornography rings, but it only occurred because of multilateral cooperation between world governments. So in a decentralized future, doesn't that actually empower some of these more nefarious types with lots of resources and power? How do we fight against that shit? His answer was, number one, put things in perspective. He was like, yeah, I'm sure that there are some decent people in government who do some good, but when you have an appropriate perspective and you compare what little good may be done, not to downgrade or belittle it, but what little good is done in comparison with all of the massive atrocity that happens all over the world with our militaries and school bombings, if you compare it to the children who were saved because of the breaking down these child sex rings, with all the children who were murdered because of our foreign intervention, with our government alone, it pales in comparison. So while some good is done, more evil is done through centralized government anyways. And secondly, kind of to bring it back to what you're talking about, in a smaller community like France or Hong Kong, it's so much more easy to rally your community and take over your government because it's so small. So if shit goes wrong, the people have more power, they have more leverage to take power back. When you have a strong centralized government like China or Russia or the United States, the people are fucked, right? Because there's too much power. In the United States, luckily we have the Second Amendment and we have more weapons than any other country in the world, so there's a little bit of power on our side. But when things get to that level of federalization, or when power is so centralized, people are fucked. But in places like you mentioned, Hong Kong or Paris with the riots that are going on there, when shit happens that they don't like, they can outnumber their government and make it work for them. So I think in a situation where maybe your local government is corrupt or your local government is abusing you, you have a better chance of overthrowing that small county government than the entire monstrosity of the United States federal government. It's easier to right the ship. Was that like just a bunch of spaghetti, or did that make sense at all?
No, it made sense. It was a little long, but no, it made sense. No, I mean, I don't disagree with that.
Well, I think that's the main objection to Kokesh's shit is, well, hey, we'd be weaker without a national government. We need the federal government for defense. But
well, look at what a good job they did from preventing 9/11.
Yeah.
Like the one time you had to do fucking anything in this goddamn country. Where were they then? Nah, fuck it, dude. I don't know. I get it. I mean, I agree. We do horrible things all over the fucking world. We also give other countries the means to do horrible things all over the fucking world.
Yes, we do.
Resources, weapons, money, what have you.
And look at this Pizzagate shit. Like, so much of the child sex is coming from the government.
It is, and I did want to say, it doesn't really have anything to do with the point you were making, but when you said, because of government, we've been able to stop some of these child sex trafficking rings and stuff like that through cooperation, things of that nature. I feel like the ones we're getting are the ones they're giving us. You know what I mean? They know where they are. I mean, the people with money, the people with the real money and power aren't going to get caught, but they'll give you the ones that have a little bit more power than maybe some of the other ones do, to give you the illusion that this problem is ending or they're attempting to do something about it. But I think it's all a facade. I guess that's maybe more of a point to just fucking disband it, just fucking get rid of it all.